philosophers are considered to be some of the wisest men of the past, and people still study them to this day. However, not all their ideas were included in your Year 9 textbook, because some of the theories these guys had sound a bit too similar to the modern-day out-of-pocket schizo-ramblings sermonized by guys with $400 microphones and online supplement scams. In fact, if you think about it, these philosophers were the original alpha male podcasters. I mean, what did they do exactly in their little academies? Oh, well, present their ideas and opinions, no matter how absurd, in front of young and impressionable men, maybe debate each other from time to time, and also find women to be unbearable. To me, that's literally any podcast run by any dude that has a tight fade and an unchecked ego. But to illustrate my point better, I've made this list of 5 main qualities that every modern-day alpha male podcaster boils down to. And these qualities are talking out their ass about things they know little about, thinking that women are icky yucky, giving bad sex advice, gym, and getting mad at people that don't agree with them. Now, to prove the validity of my theory that Greek philosophers were in essence alpha male podcasters, I'll go over 3 of the most popular wise guys of the past and tell you why they tick at least 4 of these boxes. Starting with Plato. Despite his contributions to math and politics, as well as being open to gender equality, Plato earns being number 1 here because, like most alpha male podcasters, he would give his opinion on subjects that he actually knew little about, like human anatomy. Yeah, even though he believed that the soul is sexless, therefore women are equal to men, in his eyes, the female body was something just so very unfortunate. Mainly because of stuff like the womb. According to Plato, the womb is a separate living creature with its own free will and the ability to move around the body. In regards to this, Mr. Wise Guy believed that hysteria is the result of the womb wandering off to the host's head like some parasite type shit. And it's really interesting. Plato was essentially a feminist for his era, but at the same time, boy did he not like women. So much so that he could easily be credited as the inventor of the bros before hoes mentality, or what we also call platonic love. Yep, Plato had no time for puppos wearing womb-wandering boobs having hoes. He only loved his homies. Literally. Because Plato firmly believed that love is something more properly directed at men rather than women. And to tick off 2 boxes in one go, we know the most popular example of Plato getting something completely wrong was him calling humans featherless bipeds. In this particular instance, he did correct himself when getting called out, but that wasn't always the case. See, Plato was not his real name. Instead, Plato means broad, which referred to his build. So, allegedly, whenever he felt as if he was losing a debate with another philosopher, he would stop talking and just start flexing his muscles at the opponent. If that's not the most alpha male thing, I don't know what is. Now moving on. The next person on the list, a student and colleague of Plato's, Aristotle. Aside from political text, Aristotle has a 9-volume work called The History of Animals. And you know, some of the observations and theories presented in these volumes are absolute bull dust. For example, it's true that the eel has been very tricky for many philosophers to tackle, since it has no visible reproductive organs outside of its mating season. But Aristotle wanted to find out how they reproduce. And upon studying eels and seeing that they have no balls or whatever, he came to the conclusion that they don't reproduce. They simply are born out of the mud. Of course, the most interesting of these is the section he wrote on bees, because oh, the irony it holds. Aristotle had a special place in his heart for bees and their little society, but I assure you, this would not have been the case had he realized that the ruling bee is female. Oh yeah, Plato didn't like women, but Aristotle actually hated them. Just take a peek at this text from Book 9. Women are more compassionate and more readily made to weep, more jealous and querulous, fonder of railing, and more contentious. The female is also more subject to depression of spirits and despair than the male. She is also more shameless and false, more readily deceived, more mindful of injury, watchful, more idle, you get it. But even after reading this, you should know, Aristotle had a surprisingly healthy marriage. But he also the type of dude to tell you babies are made by combining semen and menstrual blood, so there's that. Last but not least, Pythagoras. I'll keep this one short and sweet, but this man was bizarre as fuck. I mean, the dude literally had a cult that worshipped numbers. How is this any different to whatever day traders do? And his followers treated him as if he were a god, despite the fact that he actually believed you could fart out your soul. Lastly, this is something some modern alpha men try to pass off as their idea. But Pythagoras was the first to popularize the idea that when a man expels his bodily fluids, he gives up some of his power. He preached abstinence, but if you couldn't help yourself, it was alright to keep to sexual pleasures during the winter, contrary to modern opinion. As a whole, I bet that if he was alive today, he would absolutely be doing whatever butthole tanning aims to accomplish, despite being a brilliant mathematician. Okay, I've talked quite a bit about what makes these philosophers similar to the dense alpha podcasters of today, but the reason we praise these men, regardless of some of their rather bizarre or just plain stupid opinions, is that they were spending their time learning, while these youths spend their time either preaching, getting mad, hurt, and complaining. And Aristotle was arguably questionable at best, but he was a scientist, and he dedicated himself to worthy pursuits, so you're still studying him today. Obviously this video is a joke, but who knows, some of these guys might just land a spot in some 9th grade philosophy book one day. But that was all for this one. Feed my ego by subscribing to my show, and bye.